Alright, let's fix up a few things here. So when I left in the last video, we had the problem this score text was still displaying, this new text was always displaying, and it didn't change at the end. So let's fix the easiest thing first. That win text not appearing at the end, and we ran into this little null reference exception error. Well, that was because we forgot to do the same thing we did last time. And so on the player, it didn't know where the win text was. So simply clicking and, clicking and dragging that in and placing it there will solve that problem. Now, let's just, before we playtest it, let's try to get some of these other problems gone. So the score text, how can we fix that up? Well, if we go back to the script, our problem is that we don't set the score text until we, score one here, right? So it just has its default thing. So what I'm going to do is actually call, and that's what you say when you're using these functions, I'm actually going to call the set score text right at the start. So in the start function, once I've set the score to 0, I'm actually going to call set score text. And so what's going to happen now is that right when the game begins, the score is set to 0, and then it's going to call this function and then display count is 0, okay, or score is 0. Now the last thing that we got to do is deal with this issue where, we didn't have, it's going to say you win, hopefully, but it's not, we don't want it to show win text throughout the game. So what I'm going to do actually is just copy this little bit, just to save us a little bit of typing. Control C. I'm going to go back up to the start because we want that to disappear right at the start. And I'm just going to put it right under here, paste it in. Now obviously we don't want it to say you win. Well, what do we want it to say? Well, we don't want it to say anything really. So how can we deal with that? Well, we create what they call an empty string. And it's basically just, there's nothing there. There's nothing between the quotation marks. So it just basically writes nothing in that box. So let's see how these things all go together here and hopefully fix all our errors. So I'm going to go back to Unity, saved it. Now it still says score text and new text, but that's because we haven't started the game. So I'm going to hit play here. I'm going to check for two things. So one is to score, count. I should have called that score, but anyways, count is set to 0. Okay, good. And this disappeared as well. So we're actually doing pretty good here. So the last thing to check is, of course, do we get our right score? Let's just see. The anticipation. One more. Can Mr. Fleming get it? There, and it says you win. Perfect. The game is working. Now, I didn't like that it says count there because I called it score. Used to call it count. Now I want to call it score. So I'm just going to come in here and instead of saying count, just change that to score. Okay. So that's pretty easy there. So now if I go back, hopefully the change is there. Sure enough, it says score. Perfect. Okay, just a little bit about the text there. This, if you see how I zoomed way out here, this little box, this rectangle, is actually represents your screen. And so this is the canvas. So we didn't talk about it before, but this canvas, so I could turn it off and it disappears. Bring it back. This canvas is like an overlay on your screen. So it's not really in the game per se. It's sort of away from the game. And that's what we sort of moved it around. So this is supposed to be the aspect ratio of our screen. And so the score text displays there, the new text there, and it's overlaid on top of the camera. And so that's why it just seems kind of really big. Don't worry about it. It's kind of strange, but it just tries to remove it from the game there. But that's what's overlaid right here. Okay, so let's just make sure we've saved up everything. Now, the last thing that I'm just going to mention here, before we have a little video about modifications, is that under the file, okay, we would want to build our game. So if you wanted to, have somebody else play it, you could get them to play it in the Unity game engine, right? What we've got here. But that's not typical. Obviously, you buy a game made from Unity, you don't play it in Unity itself. So what you would do is you would build it. And so I'm just going to sort of talk about this process. I won't build it here, but what we can do is we can go to build settings. Okay. And in the build settings, we've only got one scene. Okay. And that's what it is here. Sample scene. I'm going to add our open scene, which is our game here. And actually, I'm going to get rid of that sample scene because we didn't have it. So I just clicked on delete there. I highlighted it and pressed delete, and it puts our scene in here. Okay. Now, what is really cool about Unity is that you can build it for a variety of platforms. Now, they've actually reduced the number of platforms here, but you can build it for PC. That's the default. Build it for Android, so you could put it on your phone. Build it for WebGL. So they used to have a Unity player that was sort of a extension that would go into your web browser. But now you can build it directly for WebGL. So you'll see there HTML5 and WebGL. WebGL, I forget what GL stands for, but it's basically the standard graphics package sort of in web programming. iOS, tvOS, so Apple products there. Xbox One, PS Vita, if anyone has a Vita anymore, PS4. I do believe you can build it for the Switch as well. UWP, you might not have heard about, but Universal Windows Platform, and then Facebook as well. And I think there's a few other ones that you can add in there. So there's a variety of platforms you can build for. These ones, like Xbox One, you got to load a module. I think you even have to purchase something for here. PlayStation 4, right? So you have to buy something. Our license doesn't cover that, and so on. But basically, building it for Mac, PC, Mac, Linux, easy to do. You just have to change the architecture there. Windows. Oh, I think it's just because I'm on a Windows computer. It defaults to that. You might have to build on a Mac to make it work for a Mac. Not 100% sure. Android, I haven't tried it. It's a little bit more difficult because you need to bring in the Android SDK and the Java development kit as well. Not too easy. Well, I wouldn't say difficult, but it's a little bit more work. We won't worry about that. You can build for WebGL without too much problem. Yeah, so you can try that if you like. I will just come around and make sure that your game is working there. Okay, so yeah, but that's sort of the benefit of Unity. So we'll end this video here. I think you should have your game done with following these videos along. And then the next thing is just going to be to modify it. So I'll go through that process with you in another video and give you some ideas about what you could do to modify your game. But hopefully you've been able to build your first game, and you can think of this as a strong foundation to your game making career. And Unity is a great platform to start learning how to build games and program, and hopefully we can see some cool things. All right, congratulations on finishing your game, and we'll see you when you start modifying.